Welcome to the Intuitive You podcast, where we explore the concept of intuition from multiple perspectives, learn how intuition manifests itself, and the various ways it is naturally utilized in our world and daily living. I'm your host, Chantal Denise Gosselin, a scientist, a lifelong seeker of knowledge, an intuition teacher, and a passionate educator. Get ready as we dive into the mysteries of intuition and discover how it can enhance our lives and change our world. Hello, thanks for tuning in the official first episode of the Intuitive You podcast. I am very excited to see this project being birthed, coming to life, as it's been brewing for more than a year. It's been something that I've been wanting to do from a long time. The idea started as I was teaching high school students. I'll talk about this in a bit, but first, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Chantal Denise Gosselin. I'm your host, and I am a school teacher. I'm also an intuition teacher and coach. I teach people how to connect with their intuitive abilities, and also I give workshops on intuition development. And I'm also a researcher. I have a background, a master's in physiology, so I love science. I was a biology teacher for many, many years. And I'm also a yoga teacher. And so health, wellness, body, mind, spirit is something that I'm very interested and passionate about, and also the science behind it, how it works, how it all fits together in one holistic being. And I found that while I was approaching the concept of intuition, and I'll share my story in the next episode, was through the scientific method. I wanted to understand what intuition was, and through my research, I've noticed that it's not just a simple black and white answer, because intuition can be approached from different angles. You can have more of a spiritual angle, more of an experiential angle. As I was researching and noticed that intuition also speaks different ways to people. And so for myself, I get my intuitive hits, or intuition speaks to me in a specific way, and it might be different for someone else. And as I was talking to people and learning about intuition and reading about it, I was like, wow, what a great podcast this would be. And as a school teacher, I've had the privilege to work with teenagers, grade 11 and 12, 10, 11 and 12, mostly, when you have to start making life decisions for yourself, which courses you're going to take, college, university, gap year, and so on. And I found that I found myself guiding my students a lot. So yes, I was teaching the content, the curriculum, but I was also helping them bring awareness, start reflecting, and share my own story that would spark into them something that they would use to help themselves and their own decision making. And so that's actually where I was aware of my own intuition, is when it was time to start taking those decisions for my career and for my education. And therefore, I found that intuition was a powerful tool for myself for decision making. But I found that for some other people, it came about very spontaneously in a specific moment in their lives, where it changed the course of their lives or even saved their own lives. I found people that use intuition on a daily basis, that are using their intuitive gifts and abilities to help clients in various ways. And you'll hear about those stories in this podcast. So this podcast is about the people. It's about intuition and how it shows up in our daily lives for different people. You'll hear experts talk about their field and how that links to intuition. We'll have a podcast on dreams, which is the subconscious mind, which is where intuition stems from. And yeah, you'll hear all sorts of stories. And I'm hoping that through storytelling, because I found that storytelling is one of the most powerful ways to learn. It's actually the first way that knowledge used to be transmitted, and still is to this day, is through storytelling. And sometimes when we hear someone else's story and we can relate to that, it makes us feel less alone. We feel connected. And sometimes it helps us see things in ourselves that we were not too sure we were able to identify or pinpoint. So I'm hoping that this podcast will bring forth not just knowledge on what intuition is and the science behind it and research, a little bit of the research, but also by hearing people's stories, my story, other people's stories, you'll be able to connect and relate to their story and find how intuition speaks in yourself already. And maybe you're already very intuitive and you're like, I know how my intuition speaks to me. And you're just curious to hear about other people, about other intuitive people out there, and who share a common journey or a common story. And the coolest thing about intuition is that it is for everyone. Everyone has it. It's a gift. It's a gift that we all have. It's part of our human evolution. It's part of our DNA. It's part of our way to communicate. One of the ways we use to communicate. And so we're not talking about psychic abilities here. Yes, some people do have those abilities and they're very intuitive as well, but we'll see intuition more in terms of a way to acquire information in various ways, artistically, in a work, first responders, military, education, for example. And so if you're human with a beating heart, this podcast is for you. And thank you for tuning in. Another thing I wanted to touch base on is that when you're able to first become aware of your intuition. So there's 3 principles that I coach, that I teach. The first one is awareness. So this podcast is about awareness, is to bring intuition awareness, what it is, how it acts, how it manifests itself, and the different ways that it manifests itself in people's lives. So that's one thing that you'll discover in this podcast as well. Intuition guided me to do this podcast. It is a way for me to express my creativity, to share my knowledge, and also to share amazing stories. I love to connect with people. And if by listening to these episodes, you feel called to share one of your personal story, please reach out. My contact information is below. You can follow me on Instagram, check out my website as well. But if you want to simply share a story and you're like, hey, I think I have something that this audience would resonate with, please reach out. I'd love to hear from you. And however you were guided to listen to this podcast, if you're here listening to this message, that's a synchronicity or a coincidence, call it whatever you want, fill in the blank. You were meant to be here, or maybe you're meant to hear this so you can share with someone that will resonate. So if you're here, it's for a reason. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And please don't forget to subscribe and like and share. By subscribing, you'll get notifications of the latest podcast. And I'll see you in the next episode.